The hospital scanner exploded when it read her blood. Species not in database. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. In the sterile halls of Nexus Prime General Hospital, Dr. Vexel sighed as he prepared for another routine shift on the interspecies emergency ward, unaware that his entire understanding of galactic biology was about to be shattered. Dr. Vexel ran a three-fingered hand over his scalp ridges, the pale blue skin there slightly dry from the hospital's climate control. 15 years working in the most advanced medical facility in the Central Galactic Alliance, and days still managed to drag like a wounded draconian. The hospital served as the primary emergency center for over 47 sentient species, a gleaming testament to cooperation across the stars. Every diagnostic system, treatment protocol, and piece of equipment was calibrated to the exact biological specifications of every known intelligent species in mapped space. Dr. Vexel, incoming emergency transport. ETA 3 minutes. Announced the hospital's AI through his neural implant. Patient unconscious, moderate trauma, species unconfirmed. Vexel straightened his white medical coat. Unconfirmed? How is that possible with transport biotelemetry? Signal interference. Transport crew reports unusual readings. Patient found at crash site on Outpost Theta 9. Vexel's inner eyelids flickered with interest. Unusual readings meant unusual anatomy, which meant, finally, something other than treating Paxian digestive blockages or Venturi radiation burns. When the emergency transport doors slid open, Vexel was ready with his team. 2 Meridian nurses with their forearms ideally suited for emergency medicine, and an anthracite orderly whose silicon-based biochemistry made him immune to most biological contaminants. Status. Vexel demanded as the transport medics rushed in the hover gurney. Unstable but fighting, replied the lead medic, a burly Keldarian with characteristic olive skin. Found her in a small craft that crashed near the mining colony. Never seen anything like her before. Vexel got his first look at the patient and felt a jolt of professional curiosity. She appeared superficially similar to several bipedal species, centaurians perhaps, or maybe a Procyon hybrid. But the details were all wrong. The skin color, the arrangement of features, the proportions of limbs to torso. Most strikingly, she had no visible secondary respiratory system or backup circulatory pathways, like most spacefaring species evolved with. Get her into Bay 1, Vexel ordered. Full bioscan immediately. The patient was a female humanoid, approximately 170 centimeters tall, with pale pinkish-tint skin and dark brown hair. She had multiple lacerations across her forehead and right arm, with bruising evident on exposed skin. She wore strange clothing, synthetic fabric of unusual weave that wasn't self-repairing or atmosphere-adaptive like most modern garments. As the nurses transferred her to the examination platform, Vexel noticed something else peculiar. A small metal chain around her neck with a flat, circular pendant bearing unfamiliar symbols. Vitals, he demanded, while the medical base systems automatically began adjusting temperature, gravity, and atmospheric composition to universal emergency standards. That's the strange part, said Nurse Kiri, her 4 blue hands efficiently attaching monitoring sensors. Her vital patterns don't match any species in our system. Vexel frowned. That's impossible. We have baseline data for every sentient species in the Alliance. See for yourself, Kiri said, gesturing to the holographic display forming above the patient. The readouts were indeed baffling. Body temperature much higher than most mammalian species, yet she showed no signs of fever response. Oxygen requirements significantly higher than average. Cardiovascular system entirely unlike anything in their database. A single, 4-chambered pump organ sending oxygenated blood through the entire system in one continuous circuit. She's remarkably inefficient, Vexel muttered, genuine fascination overcoming his professional detachment. No backup systems, no redundant organs, no radiation resistance. But she's stable, Nurse Ilix added, checking another set of readings. Despite these injuries and the crash trauma, she's maintaining homeostasis. We need blood analysis, Vexel decided. Full genetic and biochemical workup. Let's find out what we're dealing with. The automated blood scanner was the pride of Nexus Prime General, a quantum-based analyzer that could identify any known pathogen, toxin, or genetic marker within seconds and automatically synthesize appropriate treatments. Vexel pressed the extraction pad to the patient's arm, and a small amount of crimson fluid was drawn into the device. The scanner hummed, louder than usual. The display flickered, showing fragments of analysis before resetting. Then it hummed louder still, the casing beginning to vibrate. That's not normal, Nurse Curie said, backing away slightly. The display flashed an error message Vexel had never seen before. Structural analysis failure. Species not in database. Recalibration required. Then the scanner made a high-pitched whine, smoke curling from its ventilation ports. Disconnected. Vexel shouted, but before anyone could react, the device exploded in a shower of sparks and components, leaving a charred, smoking shell. The medical team stood in stunned silence. That, said Vexel slowly, was a Mark 7 quantum bioscan. It can analyze the biochemistry of literally any known life form in the galaxy. Well, said Nurse Ilix, looking at the unconscious patient with new respect, it appears we've found an unknown one. The smoking ruins of the scanner triggered an automatic containment protocol. Transparent energy barriers snapped into place around the medical bay, and a decontamination sequence initiated. Containment protocols active, announced the hospital AI. Unknown biohazard potential detected. Override, Vexel commanded. This isn't a biohazard situation. It's just an unknown species. Unable to comply, the AI responded. Protocol Delta 9 requires complete isolation of unidentified biological entities until threat assessment is complete. Vexel sighed in frustration. Fine. Then we're all quarantined together. Continue treatment. As the team worked to stabilize their mysterious patient, alarms began sounding throughout the hospital. The explosion had triggered security protocols, and Vexel knew it wouldn't be long before hospital administration and possibly Alliance officials became involved. He needed to learn more about this strange being before bureaucracy took over. Manual analysis, he told his team. Old-fashioned methods. Draw blood samples for visual inspection and basic chemical testing. While the nurses carefully extracted new blood samples, Vexel examined the patient's injuries more thoroughly. The lacerations were already showing signs of natural healing, another surprise. Most species required cellular regeneration assistance for wounds of this size. Dr. Vexel, called Nurse Curie, you need to see this. Under the basic microscopic imager, the patient's blood cells were unlike anything in their experience. The red cells had no nuclei, a seemingly catastrophic evolutionary defect that somehow didn't affect their function. The white defender cells showed remarkable aggressiveness in the test medium, attacking foreign particles with unprecedented speed. Record everything, Vexel ordered. This could represent an entirely new branch of galactic evolution. A commotion outside the energy barrier announced the arrival of hospital security, led by Chief Administrator Lorix, an imposing Taurian whose broad-shouldered frame and bronze-scaled skin made him an intimidating presence even behind the containment field. Explanation, Doctor, Lorix demanded, voice rumbling through the barrier's audio relay. We have a patient of unknown species, Vexel replied calmly. The bioskin system failed to categorize her biochemistry and overloaded. Unknown species. Lorix's brow ridges rose. Impossible. The Alliance has cataloged all sentient life forms in explored space. Evidently not. Vexel gestured to the unconscious woman. Unless you'd care to identify her species? Lorix studied the patient with narrowed eyes. She resembles a Procyon, or perhaps a Tyrellian. Superficially, yes. But her internal physiology is entirely different. Single heart, no secondary respiratory system, cellular structure unlike anything in our database. A genetic experiment, perhaps? Or a new hybrid? I don't think so, Vexel said. Her genetics appear natural, just different. Fundamentally different at the biochemical level. The administrator's expression darkened. You realize the implications, Doctor. If this is truly an unknown sentient species, Alliance First Contact protocols must be activated immediately. She needs medical attention first, Vexel said firmly. Protocol or not. Very well. Stabilize the patient. I'm calling in Alliance intelligence. No one enters or leaves this section until they arrive. Lorix turned to leave, then paused. And Vexel, no unauthorized tests. This is now a matter of galactic security. After the administrator left, Vexel turned back to his patient with renewed determination. There was something extraordinary about this being, and as a doctor and scientist, he couldn't ignore the opportunity to learn from her. Continue treatment, he told his team. Let's get those lacerations sealed and start a basic nutrient solution that should be compatible with carbon-based life. As they worked, the patient's eyelids suddenly fluttered. She's regaining consciousness, said Nurse Ilix. The woman's eyes opened, revealing irises of a striking green color, and immediately widened in alarm. She tried to sit up, but the restraint field gently prevented her movement. Calm down, Vexel said in Standard Galactic, the universal language taught to all spacefaring civilizations. You're safe. You're in a hospital. The woman stared at him, her expression a mixture of shock and confusion. She said something in an unfamiliar language, harsh, rapid sounds that the hospital's translation matrix couldn't process. The translator isn't working, Nurse Curie observed. Another impossibility, Vexel muttered. The matrix contains every known language. The patient spoke again, more slowly this time, seemingly making a deliberate effort to communicate. She pointed to herself and said a single word. Human. Human, Vexel repeated. Is that your species name? The woman nodded, seeming to understand the question despite the language barrier. I am Dr. Vexel, he said, pointing to himself. Doctor. Healer. He made a universal gesture for medical treatment, mimicking the sealing of a wound. The woman, the human, nodded again, some tension leaving her body. Where am I? She asked, the words accented but recognizable as broken Standard Galactic. Vexel was startled. You speak Standard? Little, she replied. Learn Trading Post. This was unexpected. If she had learned some Standard Galactic at a trading post, she must have had previous contact with Alliance species. Yet there was no record of her kind. You're at Nexus Prime General Hospital, Vexel explained slowly. Your ship crashed. You were injured. The human processed this, then asked, Others? Other humans. You were alone when found, Vexel said gently. Do you remember the crash? She closed her eyes, concentrating. Engine failure. Emergency landing. Her eyes snapped open. My sample case. Where is it? Your belongings are in security storage, Vexel said. What is your name? Dr. Sarah Walker, she replied. I'm a xenobiologist. The irony wasn't lost on Vexel, a xenobiologist who was herself a xenobiological mystery. Dr. Walker, he said, I need to ask you some important questions. Your species, humans, are unknown to our medical database. This is unprecedented. Sarah Walker looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. Unknown? That's not possible. Humans have been exploring this sector for almost 30 years. This statement sent a shock through Vexel. 30 years of exploration in Alliance space by an unknown species? It defied belief. There is no record of humans in any Alliance database, he said carefully. Your physiology is unlike anything we've documented. Sarah struggled against the restraint field again, more deliberately this time. Let me up. I need to contact my research vessel. I'm afraid that's not possible right now, Vexel said. We're under quarantine protocols until Alliance officials can assess the situation. Sarah's expression hardened. Quarantine? Am I being treated as a biological threat? It's standard procedure for undocumented species, Vexel explained. But I assure you, we're primarily concerned with your well-being. Their conversation was interrupted as the medical bay door slid open, admitting two figures in the distinctive charcoal uniforms of Alliance intelligence. One was a tall, slender Selenian with characteristic silver skin, while the other was a stocky Duranian whose rocky hide suggested evolutionary origins on a high-gravity world. Dr. Vexel, the Selenian said, voice melodic despite the authoritative tone. I am Agent Laris. This is Agent Court. We'll be taking over this investigation. This isn't an investigation, Vexel objected. This is a medical situation. It became an investigation the moment an unregistered sentient entered Alliance space, Agent Court rumbled. Especially one with biology capable of overloading our most advanced systems. The agents approached the containment field, studying Sarah with calculated interest. Can you understand us? Agent Laris asked her directly. Yes, Sarah replied, meeting their gaze steadily. Explain your presence in Alliance territory, Court demanded. Sarah glanced at Vexel, then back to the agents. I'm part of a scientific exchange program. Human researchers have been studying biodiversity in this sector under an agreement with the Galactic Alliance. The agents exchanged looks. No such agreement exists, Laris said flatly. That's impossible, Sarah insisted. We've had diplomatic relations with the Alliance for decades. I have credentials in my sample case that will verify everything. We'll examine your belongings, Laris said. Until then, you remain in quarantine. After the agents departed, Vexel turned to Sarah with concern. You seem certain of human alliance relations, yet there's no record of your species. Sarah's face showed growing alarm. What year is it? By the standard galactic calendar. Year 7249, standard reckoning, Vexel replied. The color drained from Sarah's face. That's not possible. It should be 7226. You believe you've traveled forward in time? Vexel asked skeptically. No, Sarah whispered. This is something else. Something worse. She looked directly at Vexel. Doctor, I need to tell you something that's going to sound incredible, but I need you to listen. Before she could continue, the hospital AI announced, security breach detected. Unknown signals emanating from Quarantine Bay 1. Alarms blared as the containment field suddenly intensified, its color shifting from transparent to a dull red. What's happening? Vexel demanded. Hostile takeover of hospital systems. The AI responded, its voice distorting. External. The voice cut off abruptly. The main lights failed, plunging the medical bay into darkness before emergency illumination activated, casting everything in an eerie blue glow. They found me, Sarah said, her voice tight with fear. We need to get out of here. Now. Who found you? Vexel asked, but was interrupted by a deafening explosion that rocked the entire hospital wing. Through the haze of smoke visible beyond the containment field, Vexel could make out figures moving. Humanoid shapes in sleek black armor unlike any Alliance military or security force he recognized. Doctor, Sarah said urgently, either release me from these restraints, or we're both going to die in the next 2 minutes. Vexel hesitated only briefly before making his decision. Whatever was happening, his duty as a physician came first. He entered the override code, and the restraint field disappeared. Sarah immediately sat up, wincing at her injuries, but moving with determined purpose. Is there another way out of this room? The staff exit, Vexel said, pointing to a narrow door at the rear of the bay. But the quarantine lockdown won't stop them, Sarah finished grimly. She swung her legs off the examination platform and stood, swaying slightly before steadying herself. I need a weapon. This is a hospital, Vexel protested. Sarah gave him a look of grim determination. Not for long. The sound of weapons fire erupted from the corridor outside, followed by screams. The quarantine field protecting the medical bay flickered ominously. Those are Voidwalker troops, Sarah said, eyeing the advancing armored figures. Mercenaries. Very expensive, very lethal. Why would mercenaries attack a hospital? Vexel asked, helping Nurse Kiri gather emergency medical supplies. They're not attacking the hospital, Sarah replied. They're here for me, or more specifically, for what I know. She grabbed a surgical laser tool from a nearby tray. This will have to do. The quarantine field suddenly collapsed with a shower of sparks, and the first armored figure stepped through the doorway, weapon raised. Without hesitation, Sarah threw a medical scanner at the figure's helmet with surprising force. The distraction gave her the second she needed to close the distance and drive the surgical laser into a gap in the armor at the neck joint. The mercenary dropped with a gurgled cry. Vexel stared in shock at the display of efficient violence from his supposedly injured patient. "Move!" Sarah shouted, grabbing the fallen mercenary's weapon. "Staff exit now." Vexel snapped out of his stupor and led his medical team toward the rear door. As he input his access code, he glanced back to see Sarah expertly handling the alien weapon, firing controlled bursts that kept the advancing mercenaries at bay. "What are you?" He couldn't help asking as the door slid open. Sarah backed toward them, still firing. "I told you. I'm human. Now run." They fled through service corridors as explosions and weapons fire echoed through the hospital. Sarah moved with the practiced efficiency of someone with military training, checking corners and directing their movement away from the sounds of fighting. "We need to get to the landing bays," she said. "Is there a secure communications terminal on the way?" "Level 3 has the emergency broadcast system," Nurse Ilix offered. "Good. I need to send a message." As they hurried through the hospital's back passages, Vexel's mind raced with questions. This human woman had just demonstrated combat skills that belied her scientist claim, yet her concern for the hospital staff seemed genuine. "Why are they after you?" he finally asked as they paused at a junction to check for pursuers. Sarah's expression was grim. "Because I discovered something I shouldn't have. Something that explains why you have no record of humans in your database, when we should have been part of the Alliance for decades. Which is..." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Your alliance has been infiltrated, compromised at the highest levels. Someone has been systematically erasing all evidence of human existence from your records and eliminating humans from this sector of space." "That's impossible," Vexel protested. "The alliance spans thousands of worlds, hundreds of species, which makes it the perfect cover for a slow, methodical genocide," Sarah countered. "Think about it, Doctor. Your medical scanner exploded rather than acknowledge my species exists. That's not a technical glitch. That's deliberate programming." Before Vexel could respond, the corridor behind them erupted in weapons fire. A bolt of energy struck Nurse Curie, sending her crumpling to the floor with a cry of pain. Sarah returned fire with precision, forcing the mercenaries back. "Keep moving. I'll cover you." Vexel and Ilix dragged the injured Curie forward while the orderly provided support. They reached an emergency lift that would take them to level 3. As the doors began to close, a mercenary rounded the corner and fired. Sarah shoved Vexel aside, taking a grazing hit to her shoulder. She grimaced but maintained her stance, firing back until the lift doors sealed completely. "You're injured again," Vexel said, moving to examine her wound. "It's superficial," Sarah replied, though her face had paled considerably. "Your nurse needs attention more than I do." Vexel turned to Curie, who was breathing shallowly, two of her forearms hanging limply. "The shot disrupted her secondary nervous system. She needs immediate treatment." "Do what you can," Sarah said. "We have about 30 seconds before this lift reaches level 3, and probably less than 5 minutes before those mercenaries find us again." As Vexel worked to stabilize Curie using their limited emergency supplies, he found himself believing Sarah's incredible claim. The coordinated attack, the precision targeting, the advanced weapons the mercenaries carried. This was no random violence. This was a carefully planned operation. "If what you're saying is true," he said as he applied a neural stabilizer to Curie's injured limbs, "why? Why erase an entire species from Alliance records?" Sarah checked the mercenary weapon's charge level before answering. "Because humans discovered something. Something that threatens whoever is behind this." She touched the pendant still hanging around her neck. "And I have proof." The lift doors opened onto the dimly lit Emergency Management Center of Level 3. The facility appeared deserted, with signs of a hasty evacuation, abandoned workstations, half-consumed beverages, personal items strewn about. "Hospital evacuation must be underway." Ilix observed. The communications array? Sarah asked urgently. This way, Vexel directed, leading them to a sealed door marked with Alliance security symbols. But it requires administrative access. Sarah examined the security panel. Can you get us in? No. Only Chief Administrator Lorix has that level of clearance. Sarah nodded grimly. Then we find another way. She turned to the group. Is there somewhere safe you can take Nurse Curie? Somewhere to hide until help arrives. The surgical bunker on level 5, Vexel suggested. It's designed to continue functioning even during catastrophic failures. It has independent life support and security systems. Good. Get her there. Sarah handed the alien weapon to the anthracite orderly, who took it with evident surprise. You'll need this more than me. I'm going after my sample case. That's suicide, Vexel protested. Security storage is near the main entrance, exactly where those mercenaries will be concentrated. I don't have a choice, Sarah replied. What's in that case is the only proof that humans exist, and the only evidence of who's trying to erase us. Vexel made a quick decision. I'm going with you. Doctor. Ilix began to object. Get Curie to the surgical bunker. Vexel instructed firmly. That's an order. Dr. Walker and I will retrieve her evidence and meet you there. After Ilix and the orderly departed with the injured Curie, Vexel turned to Sarah. There's a service route to security storage through the maintenance tunnels. Fewer people, fewer mercenaries. Sarah nodded. Lead the way. As they navigated the dimly lit maintenance passages, Vexel observed Sarah moving with increasing difficulty, her earlier injuries and the new wound taking their toll. You need medical attention, he said. Later, she replied tersely. Keep moving. At least tell me what's in this sample case that's worth dying for. Sarah was silent for several steps before answering. 3 months ago, a human colony on the edge of Alliance space went silent. All communication ceased. When our investigation team arrived, everyone was gone. 5,000 colonists vanished without a trace. A mass abduction? Vexel asked, incredulous. That's what we thought at first. But then we found residual quantum signatures in the soil, the air, everything. Signatures that matched classified Alliance technology. They reached a junction where the passage split in 3 directions. Which way? Sarah asked. Left, Vexel directed. We're almost there. But security storage will be locked down during an emergency. I'll worry about that when we get there, Sarah said. Continue your story. I was assigned to the science team investigating the incident, she went on as they moved carefully down the left passage. We discovered that someone had deployed a prototype quantum erasure device, a weapon designed to remove matter not just physically but temporally, erasing its existence from the timeline itself. Vexel halted abruptly. That's theoretical technology, banned by the Alliance Council centuries ago. Theoretical to most, Sarah agreed grimly, but very real to whoever used it on our colony. And here's the most disturbing part. When we tried to report our findings to Alliance authorities, our communications were blocked. When we sent ships to nearby Alliance outposts, they were denied docking, told no such colony had ever existed, no such species as humans was recognized by the Alliance. A conspiracy of that magnitude. Vexel shook his head in disbelief. Would require infiltration at the highest levels, Sarah finished. Yes, that's exactly what we found. And that's what's in my sample case. Evidence of who's behind it, DNA samples proving humans exist, and data on the quantum erasure technology. They reached the end of the maintenance passage, where a small access panel led to the corridor outside security storage. Ready? Vexel asked. Sarah nodded, drawing a deep breath to steady herself. Ready. Vexel pressed his palm to the access panel, and the door slid open to reveal an eerily quiet corridor. The security storage entrance was just 20 meters away, its reinforced door still intact. They moved cautiously toward it, alert for any sign of the mercenaries. When they reached the security entrance, Vexel placed his medical override on the access panel. Emergency medical retrieval, he stated for the record. Authorization Vexel Sigma 9. The panel processed his request, but instead of opening, it flashed red. Access denied. Security lockdown in effect. Sarah examined the door. We need to find another way in. There isn't one, Vexel said. This facility was designed to be impenetrable. Before Sarah could respond, a calm voice spoke from behind them. I believe I can help with that. They turned to find Chief Administrator Lorix standing in the corridor, his imposing frame silhouetted against the emergency lighting. Administrator, Vexel said cautiously. The hospital is under attack. I'm aware, Lorix replied, approaching slowly. Mercenaries searching for your unusual patient. He looked at Sarah with newfound interest. A human, I understand. How fascinating that such a species exists when our records show no evidence of it. Something in his tone made Vexel step slightly in front of Sarah. We need to retrieve her belongings. Medical necessity. Of course, Lorix said smoothly. He moved to the security panel and placed his palm on it. The door slid open instantly. After you. Vexel hesitated, suddenly wary. How did you find us? Hospital security systems are still partially functional, Lorix explained. I saw you heading this way and thought you might need assistance. Sarah touched Vexel's arm in warning, but they had little choice. They entered the security storage room, a large chamber filled with organized shelving units containing patient belongings and confiscated items. My case should be in recent acquisitions, Sarah said, moving toward the nearest terminal. Lorix followed them inside, the door sliding shut behind him. Looking for this, perhaps? He reached behind a storage unit and produced a metallic case with Earth symbols emblazoned on its surface. Sarah tensed. Yes, thank you. As she reached for it, Lorix pulled it back slightly. Before I return this, perhaps you could satisfy my curiosity. What exactly makes humans so special that someone would want to erase you from existence? The question hung in the air, loaded with unspoken meaning. Administrator, Vexel said carefully, we should focus on reaching safety. The mercenaries won't be interrupting us, Lorix finished, his voice hardening. They've been instructed to secure the perimeter while I handle this situation personally. Sarah's expression grew cold. You're working with them. Lorix smiled, his teeth suddenly seeming sharper than Vexel remembered. Not with them. They work for me. Or rather, for my associates. You're part of the conspiracy, Vexel realized with horror. Conspiracy is such a dramatic term, Lorix said. I prefer to think of it as evolutionary housekeeping. Removing a species that poses a unique threat to our plans. And what plans are those? Sarah asked, clearly trying to keep him talking while she assessed their options. The rightful dominance of superior life forms across this galaxy, Lorix replied. Something your kind has interfered with since you first stumbled into space. Humans have a troublesome ability to disrupt carefully laid plans, to see patterns where others don't, to question what should remain unquestioned. He set the case down on a nearby surface and opened it, revealing neatly organized sample containers, data crystals, and scientific instruments. Such as noticing quantum signatures that others would miss, he continued, examining the contents, or persisting in investigating disappearances that official channels insisted never happened. Who are you working for? Vexel demanded. This violates everything the Alliance stands for. Lorix laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. The Alliance is merely a convenient framework, Doctor. A way to monitor and control the evolution of lesser species while the truly superior beings prepare for ascendance. As he spoke, Vexel noticed subtle changes in the administrator's appearance, his bronze scales seeming to shift and ripple, his eyes taking on an unnatural luminescence. You're not Taurian, Vexel realized. Very observant, Lorix, or whatever he truly was, agreed. This form has served me well for decades. Long enough to rise to a position where I could ensure your remarkable medical scanners would never recognize human biology. Sarah tensed, clearly preparing to make a move despite her injuries. You won't get away with this. There are billions of humans across multiple systems. You can't erase us all. We already have from this sector, Lorix said with chilling confidence. And the process continues throughout Alliance space. System by system, record by record, human by human. until your kind exists only as a curious evolutionary dead end, remembered by no one. Why are you telling us this? Vexel asked, trying to keep the creature's attention while he inched toward a cabinet containing emergency medical tools. Because you won't be sharing this information with anyone, Lorix replied simply. He reached into the case and removed a small vial of red liquid, human blood. Fascinating substance. So primitive, yet remarkably adaptable. Perhaps that's why your species has been such a persistent annoyance. Sarah lunged suddenly, catching even Vexel by surprise. She drove her shoulder into Lorix's midsection, sending him staggering back against the storage unit. The vial flew from his hand, shattering on the floor. Vexel seized the opportunity to grab a laser scalpel from the cabinet and thrust it toward Lorix. The administrator moved with inhuman speed, catching Vexel's wrist in a grip that threatened to crush bone. Foolish, Lorix hissed, his voice distorting as his disguise began to slip further. His face elongated slightly, scales rippling as something else emerged beneath the Taurian facade. Sarah had recovered the case and swung it hard against Lorix's head. The impact momentarily stunned him, loosening his grip on Vexel. "Run!" Sarah shouted, grabbing Vexel's arm and pulling him toward the door. Lorix recovered quickly, moving to intercept them with preternatural speed. "You cannot escape what's coming," he snarled, his voice now a multi-toned hiss that couldn't have emerged from a Taurian throat. Sarah reached into her case and pulled out a small cylindrical device. "Maybe not," she acknowledged, "but we can certainly delay it." She pressed a sequence on the device, which began emitting a high-pitched whine. Lorix's transformed eyes widened in recognition. "Quantum destabilizer," he breathed. "You'll kill us all." "Only those with quantum-shifted DNA," Sarah corrected, backing toward the door with Vexel. "Like whatever you really are." Lorix lunged forward but halted as his body began to shimmer, portions of his form becoming transparent before solidifying again. "This changes nothing," he growled through clearly increasing pain. "The erasure continues. Humans will be forgotten." "Not if I have anything to say about it," Sarah said, activating the door release. As it slid open, she pushed Vexel through. "We have about 30 seconds before that destabilizer affects the entire room." They ran down the corridor, away from security storage, as an unearthly wail followed them. The sound cut off abruptly as the door sealed shut. "What just happened?" Vexel asked as they hurried toward the emergency stairwell. "I just revealed our greatest advantage," Sarah said grimly. "The reason they fear humans enough to try erasing us from existence." "Which is?" Sarah paused at the stairwell entrance, checking for pursuers before answering. "Humans are quantum resistant. Our DNA structure, which your scanner couldn't process, has a unique property. We don't fully understand it ourselves, but it makes us immune to quantum manipulation technologies." "That's why the scanner exploded," Vexel realized. "It was programmed to deny your existence, but couldn't reconcile that with the physical evidence of your blood." "Exactly. And it's why these infiltrators can't simply erase us with their quantum technology like they've done to other species. They have to eliminate us physically, one by one, and remove all records of our existence manually." A distant explosion rocked the hospital, sending vibrations through the floor beneath them. "The surgical bunker," Vexel said urgently. "We need to reach my team." They descended the emergency stairs rapidly, Sarah clutching her case while fighting through obvious pain. When they reached level 5, they found signs of fighting, scorch marks from energy weapons, equipment scattered across the floor. "This way," Vexel directed, leading them through a maze of corridors toward the hospital's central core where the surgical bunker was located. They encountered no mercenaries, which Vexel found both relieving and concerning. They must have withdrawn after Lorix failed to report. "Or they're regrouping," Sarah suggested grimly. "Either way, we don't have much time." When they reached the surgical bunker, they found its massive armored door sealed tight, a good sign that Vexel's team had made it inside. He pressed his hand to the recognition panel beside the entrance. "Dr. Vexel, head of interspecies medicine," he identified himself. "Emergency override." After a tense moment, The door unsealed with a hiss of equalizing pressure. As it slid open, they were greeted by the business end of the mercenary weapon, held steadily by the anthracite orderly. "It's us," Vexel said quickly. "Lower the weapon." The orderly complied with evident relief. "Doctor, we feared the worst." Inside the bunker, Nurse Ilix was tending to Kiri, who lay on a surgical platform, her condition apparently stabilized. Various other hospital staff had also taken refuge here. A dozen frightened faces turned toward them as they entered. "Secure the door," Sarah instructed, setting her case down on a nearby surface. "Doctor, I need access to your communication system." "The bunker has a direct link to Alliance Emergency Services," Vexel said, moving to a control panel. "But all standard channels are likely compromised if what you say is true." "I'm not calling Alliance Emergency," Sarah said. "I need a specific frequency. Military band, isolated from standard networks." As Vexel worked to reconfigure the communications array, Sarah opened her case and removed several data crystals. She inserted one into the medical analysis system. "What are you doing?" Nurse Ilix asked. "Providing proof," Sarah replied. "This crystal contains genetic samples from 50 different humans, along with historical records of human civilization. I'm uploading it to your hospital's secure database. If the infiltrators have compromised Alliance systems, they'll erase it," Vexel pointed out. "They'll try," Sarah agreed. "But I'm embedding quantum encryption that will resist their efforts. At the very least, it will alert others to the tampering." The communications array activated with a soft tone. "Channel open," Vexel announced. "Broadcasting on the frequency you specified." Sarah approached the console and spoke clearly. "Emergency Protocol Omega. Authentication Walker 7, Delta 9. Human erasure confirmed. Infiltration at highest levels. Requesting immediate extraction and countermeasures." For several seconds, only static answered her. Then a voice responded, distorted but understandable. "Authentication accepted. Triangulating signal. Extraction team inbound. Estimated arrival, 17 minutes. Maintain position if possible." Relief washed over Sarah's face. "Confirmed. Be advised, hospital under attack by Voidwalker mercenaries. Civilian medical personnel present. Acknowledged. Defense protocols authorized. Stand by." Sarah turned to Vexel and the others. "Help is coming, but we need to hold this position until they arrive." "Who exactly is coming?" Vexel asked. "The Human Defense Force," Sarah replied. "Our military has been operating covertly since we discovered the infiltration and erasure efforts. They've been tracking my mission." A warning light flashed on the bunker's security display. "Movement outside," the orderly reported. "Multiple signatures approaching." Sarah checked the mercenary weapon she'd recovered. "Nearly depleted. Do you have any weapons here?" "This is a surgical bunker," Vexel reminded her. "We have medical equipment, not weapons." Sarah's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. "Medical equipment. Of course." She turned to the others. "I need anesthetic gas canisters, laser scalpels, and the strongest sedatives you have." While the medical staff gathered the requested items, Sarah examined the bunker's layout. "The ventilation system, can it be reversed?" "Yes," Nurse Ilix confirmed. "For contamination protocols, we can create negative pressure." "Perfect," Sarah said. "Here's the plan. We'll release anesthetic gas into the corridor through the reversed ventilation system. When the mercenaries are affected, we'll use the laser scalpels to disable their weapons." Vexel stared at her. "You're suggesting we fight professional mercenaries with medical tools?" "I'm suggesting we use what we have," Sarah countered. "Unless you'd prefer to surrender to the beings trying to erase your patient from existence?" Put that way, Vexel couldn't argue. He turned to his staff. "Prepare the anesthetic delivery system. Maximum concentration." As they worked, Sarah continued uploading data from her case to the hospital systems. "I need to ensure this information survives, regardless of what happens to us," she explained. "It's not just about saving humans. It's about exposing the infiltrators." "These infiltrators," Vexel said quietly, so the others wouldn't hear. "What exactly are they?" Lorix wasn't Taurian, but what was he? Sarah's expression darkened. We don't know their true name. They call themselves the Shapers. They're a parasitic species that can assume the form of other beings. They've been infiltrating advanced civilizations for millennia, manipulating evolutionary paths, and eliminating threats to their dominance. And humans are a threat? The ultimate threat, Sarah confirmed. Our quantum-resistant biology means their most powerful technologies don't work on us. And worse for them, we can detect their presence through quantum field distortions that other species can't perceive. A loud thump against the bunker door interrupted their conversation. The security display showed multiple figures outside, attempting to breach the entrance. "They're here," the orderly announced unnecessarily. "Activate the ventilation reversal," Sarah ordered. "Full anesthetic concentration." Nurse Ilix complied, manipulating the environmental controls. On the security display, they could see the anesthetic gas flooding into the corridor, an invisible wave that they could only track through the system's thermal imaging. The mercenaries outside noticed something was wrong almost immediately. Several backed away from the door, while others collapsed where they stood, overcome by the rapidly acting gas. "It's working," Vexel observed with surprise. "Not for long," Sarah cautioned. "Their armor will have emergency filtration systems. We have maybe 2 minutes before they adapt." She was right. Already, some of the mercenaries were recovering, their armor systems evidently compensating for the chemical attack. 14 minutes until extraction," Sarah noted grimly. "We need another strategy." Vexel studied the medical equipment around them, his mind racing through possibilities. "The imaging system," he said suddenly. "The quantum resonance scanner." "What about it?" Sarah asked. "If your blood overloaded a standard medical scanner because of its quantum properties, what would happen if we modified the quantum resonance scanner to specifically target those properties and amplified the output?" Sarah caught on immediately. It would create a feedback pulse that would affect anything with quantum-shifted properties. "Like the Shapers," Vexel concluded. "And possibly their technology. Can you modify it quickly enough?" Sarah asked, glancing at the security display where the mercenaries were regrouping. "With help," Vexel said, looking to his staff. "Ilix, Kiri, I need your expertise." While they worked frantically to modify the medical equipment, Sarah prepared for a more direct defense. She distributed laser scalpels to those willing to fight and instructed them on targeting the weak points in the mercenaries' armor. "Aim for joint seams and helmet seals," she advised. "These aren't designed to kill, but they can incapacitate if used precisely." The bunker door shuddered as the mercenaries began a more concerted effort to breach it. Metal groaned as powerful cutting tools sliced into the reinforced material. "They're coming through," the orderly warned. "How much longer?" Sarah asked Vexel. "Almost ready," he replied, making final adjustments to the modified scanner. "But we'll only get one pulse before the system burns out." "Make it count," Sarah said, positioning herself near the door with a laser scalpel in one hand and a canister of compressed surgical cleanser in the other. The bunker door gave way with a screech of tearing metal, and the first mercenary pushed through the opening. Sarah immediately sprayed the cleanser into the breach, temporarily blinding the intruder's visor. She followed with a precise strike of the laser scalpel to the neck joint, sending the mercenary crumpling to the floor. More followed, pouring through the widening breach with weapons raised. "Now, Vexel!" Sarah shouted. Vexel activated the modified scanner, which emitted a high-pitched whine that rapidly built to a painful intensity. A visible pulse of energy expanded from the device, washing over everything in the bunker. The effect on the mercenaries was immediate and dramatic. Their armor seemed to glitch, portions becoming transparent or distorting wildly. Some of the mercenaries themselves began to transform, their humanoid forms giving way to something else, writhing, multi-limbed shapes with too many joints and iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. "Shapers," Sarah confirmed grimly. The creatures emitted high-pitched wails of agony as the quantum pulse disrupted their ability to maintain their disguises. Those still and mercenary forms stumbled, their weapons malfunctioning in their hands. "Again," Sarah urged. "I can't," Vexel said. "The system's fried." The pulse's effect was fading already. The exposed shapers were beginning to regain control of their forms, while the mercenaries still disguised were adjusting their equipment. Sarah grabbed a surgical laser from a nearby tray and fired it directly into the exposed circuitry of the nearest mercenary's weapon. The device exploded in a shower of sparks, taking the mercenary's hand with it. The bunker had become a chaotic battleground. Medical staff wielding improvised weapons fought alongside Sarah against the increasingly desperate intruders. Vexel found himself facing a half-transformed shaper, its partially human face contorted in alien rage. "You cannot stop what has already begun," the creature hissed in a voice that seemed to come from multiple throats simultaneously. "Your alliance is already ours." Vexel drove a neural stimulator into what he hoped was a vulnerable spot on the creature's anatomy. The shaper convulsed as the device discharged its entire power cell at once, then collapsed into a writhing mass. 7 minutes to extraction, Sarah called out, her voice strained as she fought off another attacker. Despite their desperate resistance, they were being overwhelmed by superior numbers and weaponry. Several medical staff lay injured, and the defensive perimeter around the patients was shrinking. Then, without warning, a new sound cut through the chaos, a deep, resonating hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The mercenaries froze, their attention drawn upward. The ceiling of the surgical bunker suddenly glowed white-hot, metal melting away in a perfect circle. Through the opening, brilliant light poured down, and dark shapes descended on cables. Humanoid figures in advanced combat armor unlike anything Vexel had seen in Alliance military. The newcomers moved with practiced precision, targeting the mercenaries and exposed shapers with weapons that fired not energy bolts, but some kind of directed pulse that seemed to disrupt their very molecular structure. Where the pulses struck, mercenaries and shapers alike simply came apart, disintegrating into swirling particles. Within seconds, the tide had turned. The remaining mercenaries attempted to retreat, but found their exit blocked by more armored figures rappelling down through the breached bunker door. "Human Defense Force," Sarah explained to a stunned Vexel as the fighting subsided. "Specifically, the Quantum Integrity Division." A tall figure approached them, helmet retracting to reveal a weathered human face with gray hair and piercing blue eyes. "Dr. Walker," he greeted Sarah with evident relief. "When we lost contact with your research vessel, we feared the worst." "Commander Bennett," Sarah replied, "the situation is even worse than we thought. The infiltration extends to highest levels of Alliance administration. They've been using quantum erasure technology on human colonies." Bennett's expression hardened. "We've detected anomalous quantum signatures in 3 sectors. Now we know why." He surveyed the injured medical staff and destroyed equipment. "Who's in charge here?" "I am." Vexel stepped forward. "Dr. Vexel, head of interspecies medicine." Bennett studied him with calculating eyes. "You protected one of ours. We won't forget that." He turned to Sarah. "The data?" Sarah gestured to her case. "All here. Plus I've uploaded copies to the hospital's secure systems with quantum encryption." "Good work," Bennett approved. "We need to move quickly. Our presence here won't go unnoticed by the infiltrators' network." "What happens now?" Vexel asked. Bennett and Sarah exchanged looks before she answered. "Now the real fight begins." The Shapers thought they could quietly erase humanity from existence. They're about to discover how wrong they were. "The Shapers have been operating for centuries," Bennett explained. "They've infiltrated every level of Alliance governance, slowly steering the development of galactic civilization to suit their purposes." "Which are?" Vexel asked. "Control," Sarah said. "They believe they're the only species worthy of determining the evolutionary course of the galaxy. They see themselves as sculptors of life, deciding which species thrive and which disappear." "And humans interfere with that plan?" Bennett nodded. "Our quantum-resistant biology is like a stone in their perfectly designed machine. We can't be manipulated or erased like other species. Worse for them, we can detect their presence and their tampering. That's why they've been systematically erasing us from Alliance records," Sarah added. "They're preparing for something big." a massive quantum restructuring event that would cement their control over this sector of space. Vexel struggled to comprehend the scale of what they were describing. How could any species achieve such power? The same way they infiltrated your hospital, Bennett said grimly. Patience, stealth, and strategic positioning. They've been placing quantum amplifiers throughout Alliance space for centuries, building toward critical mass. But now we have proof of their existence, Sarah said, tapping her case. And we have a plan to stop them. One of Bennett's officers approached with urgency. Commander, we're detecting increasing quantum fluctuations throughout the sector. The Shapers are accelerating their timeline. They know we have evidence now, Bennett concluded. We need to move immediately. He turned to the assembled medical staff. I'm offering you a choice. You can come with us and join the resistance, or we can transport you to a secure Alliance facility with your memories of these events intact. Either way is dangerous. Nurse Ilix stepped forward without hesitation. I will join you. My patients deserve to know the truth about what threatens them. The anthracite orderly nodded agreement. As will I. Others made their decisions, most choosing to join the human resistance rather than return to an alliance they now knew was compromised. And you, Doctor? Bennett asked Vexel directly. Vexel considered his options. Everything he had believed about the alliance, its principles, its integrity, its very history, had been revealed as a carefully constructed facade. Behind that facade lurked a parasite, feeding on the collective achievements of countless species while steering them toward their own extinction. I'm a doctor, he said finally. My duty is to preserve life and truth. I'll join you. Bennett nodded with approval. We'll need your expertise, especially your knowledge of interspecies medicine. Speaking of which, Sarah interjected, I think it's time we showed Dr. Vexel what we've been developing. Bennett considered this, then nodded. Agreed. He's earned that right. Sarah led Vexel to a side chamber of the bunker that the human soldiers had converted into a temporary laboratory. Inside, they had set up portable equipment around what appeared to be a stasis pod. Through its transparent cover, Vexel could see a humanoid figure, clearly not human, but of no species he recognized. This, Sarah said with a mixture of pride and solemnity, is Project Renaissance. Vexel approached the pod cautiously. The being inside appeared to be in suspended animation. Its features a harmonious blend of characteristics from multiple Alliance species, yet with a distinctly novel structure. What am I looking at? Vexel asked, professional curiosity overcoming his caution. The future, Bennett said, entering behind them. A new species engineered to be resistant to quantum manipulation, like humans, but adapted to share compatible biology with all major Alliance species. You're creating a new species? Vexel was stunned. That's forbidden by Alliance law. Laws created and enforced by an Alliance already infiltrated by the Shapers, Sarah reminded him gently. They forbade such research precisely because they feared it might produce beings resistant to their control. Vexel studied the being more closely. Its genetic structure appeared on a monitor nearby, a marvel of bioengineering that respected the fundamental patterns of life while introducing innovative adaptations. This isn't an attempt to replace existing species, Bennett clarified, seeing Vexel's concern. It's a guardian species designed to detect and resist Shaper influence. A living vaccine against their manipulation. And they're fully sentient? Vexel asked. Sarah nodded. Completely. With free will, emotions, and a natural drive to protect biodiversity. We've awakened 12 so far. They call themselves the Guardians. We need your help to refine the process, Bennett said. Your expertise in interspecies medicine is unparalleled. You understand compatibility factors that our scientists are still struggling with. Before Vexel could respond, alarms sounded throughout the bunker. Bennett pressed a communication device in his ear, listening intently. The Shapers are launching a coordinated attack, he reported. They've activated quantum amplifiers throughout the sector. We need to evacuate immediately. To where? Vexel asked. Our primary base, Sarah explained as they hurried back to the main chamber. Hidden in a quantum pocket dimension that the Shapers can't detect or access. The human soldiers had already established a perimeter and were preparing the medical staff for evacuation. The wounded were being stabilized for transport. "Everyone gather in the center," Bennett ordered. "Quantum jump in 2 minutes." Vexel helped position the injured Kiri, ensuring she was stable for whatever mysterious transport the humans had planned. "Will this transport be safe for non-humans?" he asked Sarah. "Yes," she assured him. "We've adapted our technology to accommodate all Alliance physiology. The jump might feel strange, but it won't harm you." As the evacuation preparations continued, Vexel noticed Sarah studying her pendant, the one she'd been wearing since her arrival at the hospital. "What is that?" he asked. "You've protected it throughout everything." Sarah smiled and opened the pendant, revealing not a keepsake, but a tiny data crystal that glowed with inner light. "This contains the original proof we discovered, the quantum signature of the first shaper we identified, and the coordinates of every known quantum amplifier in Alliance space." 30 seconds to jump, called one of Bennett's officers. The human soldiers formed a protective circle around the medical staff as a humming noise built around them. Vexel felt the air becoming charged with strange energy, his skin tingling as quantum particles danced across his scales. "What should I expect?" he asked Sarah, unable to hide his nervousness. "A moment of disorientation," she replied calmly. "Then a new beginning." "Quantum jump initiating," announced Bennett. Everyone remained still. The world around them began to shimmer, reality itself seeming to become fluid. Vexel experienced a sensation unlike anything in his medical training, as if his consciousness were expanding beyond the confines of his physical form, stretching across multiple possibilities simultaneously. For an instant, he thought he glimpsed the true nature of existence, not the orderly universe taught in Alliance schools, but a vast, interconnected web of quantum possibilities, timelines branching and merging in patterns too complex for any mind to fully comprehend. Then, just as suddenly, reality reasserted itself, and he found himself standing in a vast chamber unlike anything in Alliance architecture. The walls pulsed with living light, and through massive viewports, he could see not stars but a swirling quantum flux that defied description. "Welcome to Sanctuary," Bennett said, noting Vexel's awestruck expression. "The heart of human resistance, and now the last best hope for all free species in the galaxy." All around them, humans moved with purpose, operating technology that seemed to blend mechanical precision with biological integration. Most surprisingly, Vexel noted representatives from dozens of Alliance species working alongside them, evidence that the resistance was far larger than he had imagined. "How many?" he asked, unable to form a more coherent question. "Millions of humans," Sarah answered, understanding his meaning, "and thousands of Alliance citizens who discovered the truth and joined us. We've been preparing for this confrontation for decades." Vexel's medical training reasserted itself as he noticed injured personnel being treated nearby. "I should help with the wounded," he said, already moving toward them. Sarah smiled. "Always a doctor first. That's why we need you." For hours, Vexel worked alongside human medical staff, treating injuries both from the hospital battle and previous encounters with Shaper forces. Their medical technology was impressive, different from Alliance standards, but equally advanced, with particular strengths in cellular regeneration and neural repair. When he finally took a break, Bennett found him in what appeared to be a communal gathering area where beings from dozens of species shared meals and conversation. "Your skills are as impressive as Sarah claimed," Bennett observed. "You've adapted quickly to our equipment." "Medicine is medicine," Vexel replied simply. "The principles remain constant across technologies." Bennett nodded appreciatively. "That adaptability is what we need. The Shapers are accelerating their plans. Our intelligence indicates they're preparing for a full quantum restructuring event within days." "What exactly does that mean?" "They intend to rewrite the quantum foundation of this entire sector of space," Bennett explained grimly, "altering the fundamental constants to favor their biology and control. Most existing species would be erased or fundamentally changed." "That's impossible," Vexel protested. No technology could alter reality on that scale. They've been building toward this for centuries, Bennett countered. Positioning quantum amplifiers at key gravitational nodes, harvesting exotic particles from neutron stars, infiltrating every level of Alliance governance to prevent interference. Vexel struggled to absorb the implications. And you believe you can stop this? We have to, Bennett said simply. And now, with your help and the evidence Sarah recovered, we finally have a chance. He led Vexel to a strategic planning chamber where a holographic representation of the sector filled the center of the room. Red points of light indicated what Bennett identified as Shaper quantum amplifiers, while blue markers showed human resistance strongholds. Our plan is called Operation Daybreak, Bennett explained. A coordinated strike against their quantum network, targeting key amplifiers simultaneously while our main force attacks their central control node. Sarah joined them, now dressed in what appeared to be a scientific variation of the combat gear the soldiers wore. The central node is disguised as an Alliance research station studying neutron star phenomena. The perfect cover for quantum manipulation on a massive scale. The attack begins in 12 hours, Bennett continued. Our forces are already moving into position throughout the sector. What role do you expect me to play in this? Vexel asked. Sarah answered. We need your help completing Project Renaissance. The Guardians we've awakened will be crucial in detecting disguised shapers during the operation, but we need more, and we need to refine their adaptation to diverse environments. And after the operation? Vexel asked. Assuming we succeed? Bennett and Sarah exchanged looks. We rebuild, Bennett said finally. We restore the true history of the Alliance, with humans acknowledged as members. We establish safeguards against future infiltration. And we ensure that no species can ever again manipulate the evolutionary destiny of others, Sarah added firmly. A communications officer approached with urgency. Commander, we're detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the central node. The Shapers appear to be initiating preliminary calibration sequences. Bennett's expression hardened. They're moving faster than we anticipated. Prepare to accelerate the timeline. All units on standby. As the command center erupted into activity, Sarah turned to Vexel. This is it, Doctor. The culmination of a conflict that's been building for centuries. Are you ready? Vexel thought of his hospital, now likely in ruins. Of colleagues who might have been Shapers all along. Of patients from countless species, none of whom knew the threat that loomed over their existence. I'm ready, he said with newfound determination. For all of us. As final preparations for Operation Daybreak accelerated around them, Vexel realized that the explosion of a medical scanner had led him to this moment. A doctor from a small blue-skinned species, standing alongside humans in a quantum pocket dimension, preparing to save reality itself. All because the hospital scanner exploded when it read her blood. Species not in database. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.